culture capitalist, disrupting the status quo of early-stage investing. Please welcome moderator Ali Jackson-Jolley, assistant managing editor, Forbes, and panelist Anna Mason, managing partner, Ingeborg Investments, Beth Ferreira, general partner, Serena Ventures, and Anjula Acharia, CEO and founder, A-Series Management and Investments.
Yeah, so what a pleasure to share the stage with you, these powerhouse women, culture capitalists who are just disrupting investing. And, you know, it's hard not to know, not to see that while the world of tech is changing incredibly fast, and so is startup culture, the world of VC isn't changing very fast. And yet, when we were backstage, we talked a bit about how you see the opportunity in that change. That change is the opportunity that you're finding. And so, Anna, I wanted to start with you. What do you see when you're investing that others aren't seeing?
Thank you. Well, it's great to be here with everyone. Anna Mason, I'm the managing partner of Ingeborg Investments. It's the single-family office for Olivia Walton. While we're a single-family office, we operate a lot like a venture fund, and so we're investing in innovation that can improve what we call the full female experience. And so for us, that's everything from career opportunity and financial security to better living, women's health, and motherhood. And so at the end of the day, what that means in practice is we're really looking for innovation that's built with women in mind. And when I peel back the layers of what that really means, and I think about what do we see that others don't, and how are we finding opportunities, because while our lens is very specific, our underwriting parameters, our portfolio construction is all the same as a classic VC fund in terms of the outsized opportunities that we're looking for. And so I've realized as I've taken a step back that a common thread for us is that I think we're investing in founders and businesses that are rewriting the conversation around stigma. I can actually probably go through every single company in our portfolio and pick out and pinpoint what the core consumer experience is that actually just has a lot of implicit stigma, some might even say bias, in the system, and a founder who can rewrite that story, we think, has a real opportunity sometimes to increase TAM in markets where many think that actually the TAM isn't that large, and also can capture a lot of value in markets that are already demonstrably large.
Yeah, and so thank you for saying that, because you lead me perfectly to my next question for Beth, which is, tell us a bit about the market and the opportunity for funders to be investing in women and people of color, underinvested founders. Like, tell us a bit about the market and what you're seeing that this group should know about.
Well, it's really exciting because you've seen over the last couple decades, there's been a huge pipeline of diverse people coming through PhD programs, MBA programs, like business training programs. So there's a lot of there's much more talent in the market today. I think the second big change today versus before is that there's a lot of information. So there's democratized access to information around what does it take to raise capital, what does it take to build a business. This is not just like, I'm going to talk to my buddy who happened to do this, and it's like a closed network around that. And third, there's many more like examples of women and other diverse founders and funders out there that say, like, look, like, you can do this, you can see this in the future. And you sort of think about, like, there's some noise around, like, in every downturn, it seems like women and diverse founders and funders sort of start to disappear. And I think what's been very different about this time around is when you look at, for some of us who've been through a few cycles, like in 2000, you sort of see those people disappear. In 2008, maybe not to the same extent, but they weren't as present. But there's so much resilience now, and so if the numbers are not growing as quickly as we'd like, they're not going away, and so that's what's exciting.
And can you give us, like, why is that? Give us some insight. Why is this
I think it's
time?
because of those 3 reasons. It's because they're ready. They have the training. They understand what they need to do, and they're solving big problems. When you think about what venture capital is, it's about thinking about where, culture and demographic change meet, technological innovation, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the next big thing. And the next big thing is not going to come from what it came from the last time around. It's going to come from something completely different. And so that's what we're banking on. And I think most of us are banking on the panel, is that it's going to be that sort of insight that's going to drive innovation.
Well, the next big thing, let's talk to you, Anjula, down there, because your superpower, you sort of made a name for yourself by finding and investing in the next cultural change, the next big pop culture moment. How do you do that? Tell us how you do it, and is it something, please don't say it's just instinct, because I'm hoping question part B, is it something we can learn? Is it something we could all do?
Sure. No, I can be very specific about it. So I had an incredible mentor, a guy called Jimmy Iovine. He was the founder of Interscope Records and Beats by Dre, which sold to Apple for some billions of dollars. And I was very fortunate that he invested in my first company. And he was just a genius at seeing around corners and seeing what was happening before it happened. So, he found Eminem, he found 50 Cent, he found Lady Gaga, and, he founded Beats by Dre. And I said to him one day, and he's been doing this for years, and I said, how do you do that? How do you know what's around the corner? How do you know what the next big thing is? How do you know what to lean into? And he gave me this amazing piece of advice, and that piece of advice led to my very first investment, which was my first unicorn. And he said, you have to look around the corner and see the cultural shift. And I go, that's great, but how do you do that? And he said, you really have to listen to every conversation in social settings. So if you're out for dinner, if you're at the water fountain, if you're in Starbucks or wherever you are, what's everyone talking about? Because that will bubble. And I remember, so my first investment was in a company called ClassPass, which later turned into a unicorn and sold to MindBody. And the funny thing is, I just moved to New York, and I was asking everybody about gyms, and I was like, do you go to what, Equinox? Which gym do you go to? And the consistent feedback that I got was, no, I don't go to gyms, I go to classes. I go to Barry's Boot Camp, I go to Soul Cycle, I go to Pop Physique. And everyone kept saying that to me, and I was like, oh, that's weird, everyone's doing that. And literally weeks later, Payal Kadaka came to me, and she wanted advice for a startup that she was building. I wasn't an investor at that time. I was just another founder who'd raised money, and she just wanted some advice. And I said, what are you building? And she goes, I think there's a real problem with booking classes. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, I want to build the open table for classes. One platform where you can book any class. And I was just like, that's an aha moment. I was like, that makes total sense. We should fund that. And I was her very first investor. I actually incubated the company in my office because I was a founder at the time. It was a very small check. But that's a very specific example of just listening to what people are talking about and letting that inform your investments.
But what about listening to what people are saying meant something very different a decade ago, 15 years ago, than it does now, right? Because technology has changed the world. It's changed the way we talk to each other. It's changed the way we find information. So I'm curious, what has that done for your ability to find the next trend? Has it made it harder? Has it made it easier? Has it made it just different?
So you know what I've realized is don't believe the hype. So when you're on Instagram, TikTok, Reels, whatever it is, everyone would be like, this is the next big thing. And for a while, I thought that too, because an algorithm kept feeding me the same thing that I was interested in. So if I'm right now, one of my biggest investments is a drink called Olipop, which is a new soda for a new generation. It's better for you, it's less sugar, it's just a better drink. But, I made that investment not based on what I was seeing on social media. And the funny thing about it is like, when you're on social media, you know, you look at one thing, you like it, it will just keep serving you that same stuff. So it makes it difficult because we're on social media so much. And I do use TikTok and all the platforms to inform me of what's going on, but I really have to try and manage the algorithm not to keep giving me what I think is happening, if you see what I mean. So often I grab other people's phones and I look at what's trending on their phone versus what's on mine.
Yeah. Just going to stop for a minute and say to the audience in the back, you don't want to miss this next nugget of information, so you're going to want to pay attention. Anna, let me ask you this. To be in the world of VC, it has been said, and I think it would be hard to argue, that you're investing in the founder and the personality almost as much as the idea. But I'm curious, how do you make sure that you're not getting bamboozled, that you're not being, you know, the charisma isn't overtaking your judgment? Like, what do you say to that, and how do you make a sound investment when you want to invest in the founder, but you also want to make sure that the idea, the business, is the best business you can be investing in?
You know, I think part of what you're getting at there is perhaps the psychology of venture. I think a lot about that, and I love to dabble and read different aspects and reports within the psychology world, because I think it can really inform how we think about innovation and opportunity. And there was a report I read recently from a few years ago, actually not about venture, about the business world, that talks about the psychology of promotions and the fact that men typically get promoted for their potential, while women get promoted for their performance. And I sat back and I said, oh, it's so interesting. I actually think all of those same rules perhaps apply to the venture world, in that every time you're raising funds, it's essentially like a promotion, I think, for your startup. You know, you have a new title, Series X stage company, you have more money, you have more responsibility. And so then when I take a step back and then I think about that story and how it manifests in the stats within venture, I think we see the same dynamics in that only a couple of percentage points of the billions of dollars that go to venture every year tend to go to female founders. And so to bring it full circle to the answer to your question, when I think about the lens of where I'm focused in investing in female founders, I have the privilege and the opportunity of meeting with so many founders who bring the receipts for their performance. Like, women are raising on their performance. I actually think a big part of the challenge I hold myself to the standard to, and I hope we hold the industry to, is actually I think we need to spend more time focusing on the potential of female founders in particular as well. And that's how I think, to the earlier point, you're going to see a lot more female-led, sustainable unicorns emerge in the market who are driving and creating real value in the market.
Yeah, but something I think about a lot when I think about change in our newsroom, I think about how do we change our newsroom to be more diverse. And to your point, a lot of that for VC is about changing the way the fund managers are navigating and thinking. But Beth, I think I'm going to give you this complex question, which is there also something that women founders should be doing differently? Should they be selling themselves in a different way? Understanding that some funders are thinking about the charisma of the individual. Or is that an antiquated question that my daughters at home would be really frustrated at because it isn't the women's responsibility? What do you say to that?
Well, I think that all founders need to think about how they present themselves, what an investor is looking for, how to put their best foot forward, how to think about the future in a big way. And so, there is a stereotype that women may not, put their best foot forward on, projections and are not thinking big enough. And I think that has changed a lot. I think that, generally underrepresented founders have a product mission, founder fit more so than some others, and thinking about their shared or their personal path, whether it's through their job or through their personal lived experiences. Like, for instance, we have a company in our portfolio called Azuzu, which is targeted at the underbanked. Someone who's underbanked, it's difficult for them to get credit, and they've created a platform in which they are able to get credit give people credit for their things that they do every day, like paying their rent and things like that. So like through that shared experience, created a whole new business model around that.
Yeah, and we got 2 minutes left before lunch, so I'm just going to kind of lightning speed this. I want to ask you all of this, but I'm going to start with you, Anjula. What should founders be doing to get your attention? What makes you interested in investing? What should they do? What could they be doing now if they're, and I don't mean like giving out your cell phone, but what could they do that makes them look like a good investment to you?
You know, I get asked this question a lot, and ultimately, as a female founder years ago, I got the best advice ever. And this guy who I was pitching for investment said to me, "Are you asking for advice or are you asking for money?" And I thought it was a trick question, and it was. And I answered correctly. I said, I'm looking for advice. And he goes, great, because then you'll get money. If you ask for money, you get advice, and if you ask for advice, you get money. And what that actually means in real life is you've got to be an amazing storyteller. You've got to be able to get somebody to want to go along with your vision, believe in your vision. And I think that's really storytelling. Like, whatever your idea is, whatever you want to do, just be an incredible storyteller. So before you're asking for anything, before you're asking for money, whatever, ask for advice based on your story. And I've raised a lot of money over a lot of time for a lot of female entrepreneurs, and I've always started with that. I just go to people that I know for advice or ask people to connect me to somebody for advice, and I tell the story. It's never failed.
I love it. And this isn't fair, because 30 seconds for each of you, and then we're out of here. Beth, same question for you.
I'd say do a lot of research on who you're pitching and understand what they're looking for, and either tailor your story to them or skip them and go find someone that is more interested in what you're building.
And Anna?
Yeah, I would say don't bury the lead and really lean into your expertise, the performance that you bring to bear in the industry that you're building in. Imagine you have a lot of domain expertise, and so in those first 10 seconds of your pitch is really when you're going to make that first impression. And I would fully bring your own expertise. Don't save that team page or that founder page, for example, until the proverbial end of your presentation.
Yeah, well, I could go on and on. I love sharing the stage with you, and I'd love to do it again sometime. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.